I will now call to order the April 10th meeting of the Educational Professional Standards Board Waiver Committee. I am joined this morning by fellow committee members, Ms. Murphy and Mr. Stanfield. We have 14 waivers to review and formulate a recommendation to present to the full board. We will start with waiver A, presented by Mr. Harris.
So thank you everybody for being here today. Waiver A is submitted by Georgetown College. It's to waive a portion of 16K or 5040 in regards to completing the 70 full days of student teaching. They have a list of students, totaling 9, that due to some of the weather that came through that caused weather damage, power outages, flooding, some of their student teachers weren't able to complete all 70 of those days. So they put in a request to waive a small portion of those days, I think a total of 3 for each of them, and to waive those days and have them complete their student teaching with 67 days.
All right, is there any discussion? Any questions?
So you're saying it's 3 days? They just want to, like, 3 days for each of them?
Yeah. There's 9 total.
So they had 9, so 3 days?
Yes, each one completed 67.
Absolutely.
We'll complete 67.
Okay. Well, I don't have an issue with that. So I would offer approval of waiver A.
And second. Alrighty, so we recommend approval for waiver A. Moving on to waiver B, also presented by Mr. Harris.
All right, so we have waiver B is submitted by Northern Kentucky University. Some of the details on this one are included in your information to be sensitive to the individual and their circumstances. There was a tragic and personal event that happened for the student while they were trying to complete their 70 days of student teaching. They immediately contacted Northern Kentucky University to let them know of what happened. Northern Kentucky University agreed that they should have some time with family and some time off with their incident. And so they have since then returned back to their student teaching. They've provided some supplemental assignments for this individual from Ms. Blair, Ms. Strickland. And they will complete 60 days of the required 70 days. So they're requesting that 10 of those days be waived on their 70-day placement.
Okay, and this is in addition to the supplemental activities that they have here.
Yeah, they said that she's completed her observations, her teacher work sample, her philosophy of education, 2 lesson plans. The cooperating teacher that was working with Ms. Strickland said that she's had one of the best relationships with kids that she's ever seen from a student teacher. So there is that support letter from a cooperating teacher. They feel that she's done an excellent job and feel like the 10 days are okay with given her circumstances.
Okay, I recommend that we grant the waiver.
Second.
All right, move on to waiver C.
All right, waiver C. So with waiver C, at the beginning of the semester, it was submitted by Lindsay Wilson College on behalf of Chelsea Blair. At the very beginning of her student teaching, she was diagnosed with a medical condition that resulted in some complications. Some of the symptoms made it impossible for her to do student teaching in person. She has returned to doing observations remotely. She's been doing observations, creating lesson plans, and conducting lessons virtually with the teacher that she was assigned with. The university has put together kind of an alternative plan for her that really supplements the online experience that she's having with some additional assignments. And they've given her a calendar to keep her on track. She's already completed her practice assignment, and she's got a GPA currently of 3.58. So she's been doing excellent work, as reported by Lindsay Wilson College, with the support that they have provided. And so they were asking that you approve this alternative track. And there's a lot of details in here. They met and really formed out a really good plan of how they were going to supplement her and provide support for her during her condition, and provided that information along with their waiver request. And so they were asking that you all would approve this alternative placement for Ms. Blair.
I would offer approval from Blair, for, Lindsay Wilson College, yes.
All right, I second that. So we're gonna move on to waiver D.
All right, waiver D is a little more, we've had these before. This is from the University of Cumberland on behalf of Donald Whittemere III. He's pursuing a certification as a health teacher. He is currently completing one of his 8-week placements at the high school level during the spring 2023 semester. They've reached out to 9 districts to try to get that elementary placement, and they're just not able to obtain one. So they are requesting that he be placed at the middle school level to complete his student teaching.
I would offer approval, for waiver D.
I second that approval. Move on to waiver E.
Waiver E.
Presented by Ms. Sorry.
I'm sorry, just jumping the gun here. Waiver E is requested by Mr. Matthew Courtney. He is a KDE staff member here. In his time with KDE, well, prior to coming to KDE, he taught for 4 years, teaching music in the school system. Since his time at KDE, and I was just looking for how many years he's been with here. It's like, it was more than 4, I know that. He has served as education administrative program consultant and executive staff advisor, as well as a policy advisor. He is requesting admission to UK's superintendent program, which the board does not have to approve that, but UK is being preemptive and wants to verify that he's going to be eligible for the superintendent certification if they do admit him to the program. He already holds administrator certification as supervisor of instruction, DCP, and the principal statement of eligibility. He provided a detailed chart, which is in your materials, showing what some of the related duties the principal, DPP, supervisor, et cetera, would do, and how his job duties with KDE relate to that. So he's asking for the board to waive the requirement of 2 years of school administrator experience found in 3090 so that he can be admitted to the superintendent program.
I feel like we've seen one very similar to this.
There was a similar one, yeah.
At the last board meeting, you had one that was very similar, and what you did with that, because in 3090 it lists out what type of experience can be, and that is the principal, supervisor of instruction, school counselor, DPP, director of special ed, school business administrator, local district coordinator of vocational education, or a coordinator, administrator, or supervisor of district-wide services, and it allows other administrative experience to be supplemented. So in that one, you had decided that the KDE experience aligned with the director of special ed, and so you accepted that experience. So here you would be trying to determine if his experience would align with one of those positions, that other administrative experience, for you to accept to approve the waiver.
So basically what he doesn't have is the 2 years principal.
Or
School administrator.
Yeah, he's got the certification.
He just didn't have the
Not
2 years.
served in the administrative capacity at a district. It's been here.
Yeah.
But the one from last year, they were supervising people at KDE. They had people under them. Does this person also?
Right.
So in his experience that he's included there for you, he did a chart where he has aligned, and I can provide this for you too, so you all can see this as well. He has listed out the different programs, or the different possible things, and how what he is doing that aligns with that. He is a policy advisor in the office, which that is his current role as policy advisor. So you have the associate commissioner over the office, and then the policy advisor is advising that individual and overseeing things in the office. In that role, you don't have people directly reporting to you.
There is one of his duties listed under supervisor of instruction. It says, I provide ongoing support to Kentucky's team of education recovery staff as they work to promote school improvement across Kentucky. So while they may not be staff that he's responsible for evaluating, he does oversee
this as well, since we're a little technologically challenged this morning. You're fine. So this, and you can scroll up too, this is all a part of his waiver request where he broke down those different experiences that can qualify.
Sorry, I'm gonna let you scroll.
It is,
I
I do
scrolled a
believe
little
it's
too
touchscreen.
fast.
We'll do that.
Sorry. It's like scanning through someone's phone. I didn't mean to go so far.
Not quite like that, but. So right here, this is where it starts, where he has put in the eligible positions and then how his different responsibilities have aligned, if you will want to take a look at that.
Mm-mm. Is it really touchscreen? Can you scroll up just a tad? See, it's not just me. Well, I do know there was some, if I remember the,
We don't know where we are.
yeah, we totally lost.
You were fine.
I apologize.
So, right
But it
here.
was not me this time.
It is, the touchscreen is very
I'm gonna say
finicky.
it was.
So
Yeah, it is.
If you can just get us to the bottom of this page, that would be great. Thank you.
here was the supervisor of instruction,
That's what I want to see.
and then he also has the school counselor.
Okay, wait, and you just scroll down. Okay. yeah.
Okay, there we go.
School counselor is
Would you
one of
do the
those
second
positions
top,
as well that qualifies, which is one that a school
Mhm, I
counselor does
remember
not
that one.
supervise within the district. And Dr. Murphy, this is the agenda book that they are looking at, the supporting documents in the waiver committee.
Which is crazy now because it's like 12,000 tabs.
And there were also several letters of support that were submitted on his behalf, in addition to the job duties that he outlined. Dr. Lou Young from UK,
I do remember there was a whole lot of things that.
Kevin Brown, former interim commissioner. He included a letter, Dr. Kelly Foster, associate commissioner here.
Well, for me, it's just remembering the statute, and I do remember there was a lot of different qualifications under it that were outside of the norm. So for me, I say I'll go ahead and approve the waiver. I recommend that we approve the waiver, but it's totally up to you, sir.
Ms. Kareem, she got anything?
Dr. Murphy?
I'm here. I looked at this pretty thoroughly last night. I'm a little torn. I think it sets an interesting precedent for institutions moving forward. I don't know if we've waived a requirement before admission to a program, but I could see this committee approving the waiver at the point of application. So I'm just going to abstain.
And that is a good point, Dr. Murphy. This, and I think Crystal touched on it a little bit. So this is not a waiver that is needed for admission because it's not an admissions requirement, it's a certification requirement.
Yes.
The institution has indicated to this applicant that they will not admit him unless they know that it will result in certification. And so the waiver that you would be, if you choose to approve today, what you would be approving is not a waiver of admissions requirements. You are approving the acceptance of his experience for issuance of the certification once he's completed the program. So it would still require the completion of the program, but it is a very different circumstance. So that is what the approval would mean today.
So it's a way to make sure that he's not wasting his time and the university's time and money. Right. And it also makes sense in the respect of, I know there are field hours and all types of requirements through the program, so he'll get additional experiences once he's in it, so. like I said,
Just an interesting precedent to set, that's all.
Yeah.
proactive. So.
I'll second it.
Okay, all right, I'm totally,
At this point, yeah.
And Dr. Murphy, you
All right, I will see you all later.
take
Thank you.
care.
So, Mr. Edwards, you are now joining us for.
So we're gonna move on to waiver G. And Ms. Hort.
Should be waiver F.
Am I, no, wait a minute.
Yeah, what's good?
Oh, I know what I did.
Out of the way.
Thank you. I said yes to that one instead of the previous one because I was one ahead, sorry.
That's okay. So waiver F is requested by Mr. Alan Hollenbeck. He is he holds administrator principal certification in the state of Colorado. He is requesting a waiver of 3090 that requires principal applicants to have 3 years of qualifying teaching experience before they're eligible for principal certification in Kentucky. His was an interesting situation. He's been teaching, or he's been working in a Colorado charter school since 2002 as a certified administrator. But I believe in his documentation, he worked as a teacher in that charter school system for 3 years before completing his administrator certification. However, he did not have teacher certification in Colorado because it was a charter school. His documentation provided outlined Colorado statutes that did not require charter school teachers to hold a certification if they sought a waiver, which they did. So he has 20 years of principal experience, and he wants to apply for the principal certification here. He just doesn't qualify for a teaching certificate in Kentucky because he didn't complete a teaching program in Colorado.
So making sure I'm following, I understand he was a teacher but not certified, but is a teacher in a charter school.
Yes.
And then he became an administrator. Did he get administrator certification?
Yes,
Okay.
he does have administrator certification. He's in Colorado, waived the requirement of him having to have a teacher.
So we're just transferring.
Yeah, we're just transferring principal to principal and he's got right here.
And I'll for approval.
Okay, I see.
No second.
I promise mine get easier. I'm gonna get them when I go. Get them, knock out the difficult ones at the front. Okay. You ready?
Nope. We're gonna do it anyway.
Okay, waiver G. This one is requested by Ms. Miranda Judd. She completed a Director of Special Ed program at University of Cumberland in June 2018. Following that, she submitted an application for rank change to EPSB at that time. We processed her rank change. We did not process a Director of Special Ed certification because it was not included on the rank change form and it wasn't requested by the applicant. Not until recently, until she wanted to apply for a Director of Special Ed position, she noticed that the Director of Special Ed credential was not on her certification. However, beginning December 1st, 2020, applicants requesting those certification, as well as all advanced educational leaders, are required to have the school leader licensure assessment, the principal or the administrator assessment. So she is requesting a waiver of 3090 based on when she completed her program, not when she's requesting the certification. She wants to be exempt from the school leader licensure assessment.
So in June of 2018, had she requested it and paid the fee, would it have been
She would
added?
have been, yes.
So there was nothing additional she was required to do at that time. It was an oversight on her part.
It's oversight on her part to not.
For a long time.
For
For a long time.
For 2 years, yes.
Do we have precedent on this one?
Seems like we've seen
Not,
this.
not specifically on this test, however, you all have seen individuals with teaching certification who didn't add it at one point and then have come
That's
to
what-
this board about 6 years later and said, oh, well, my scores are now expired, but please allow that. sure. Yes. Good, Kathy's been doing our commercials on that. So this one is a little different because now there is a test that is required for all new applicants, and there wasn't at the time. However, the scenario itself has occurred where an individual has asked this board to approve expired test scores because they did not.
So what's our grandfather policy on, say, well, okay, you've already answered that question. I'm just trying to think so the next time it comes up, she's gonna have to take the assessment.
No, she will not. Once you were issued the administrative certificate, you were not required to test again. So just like when you renew your teaching certificate.
So it's only because she let it fall off?
No, she never had it.
She never took the test.
Because she didn't have it. So it previously,
She
prior
didn't
to.
need it at the time.
She didn't need it at the time.
If she had she completed this 2 years ago when she finished, she would not have needed this part of the exam.
So yes,
Gotcha.
prior to December 1st of 2020, the only individuals, the only administrators that were required to have the SLLA was principals.
That's right.
But then in December 1st of 2020, the board added that for all administrative candidates. So she completed the administrator program back in 2018 when it was not required, and had she applied in the way that she thought she did at that time, she would have been issued it without taking the SLLA.
And this shouldn't set any real precedent because we should not see this occur again because anyone else who did it would have had theirs already added, or anyone who comes up after would need the test. Okay,
Well, see,
so I'm
that's
okay.
the only thing. But I'm not sure about your second. I'm not sure that this is
the possibility that there are
there's going to be more. That's what I'm saying.
But they would have to be in this time period. They would not be able to
Yes,
forward.
they would have to be, they would have had to put in the program prior to December 1st of 2020.
Right.
And that should be a small amount at this point.
And my thing is, if you were in a program prior to the test being required, you probably weren't necessarily prepared for the test, so that's also kind of an equity issue. So, okay, I'm okay with it. I recommend we grant the waiver. Just making sure. Sorry.
Waiver H.
Thank you.
This one is requested by Tina Chambers. She is employed by Paris Independent Schools. She came from out of state. Currently employed for the 22-23 school year. She did an alternative certification program in Florida, completed that in 2007. However, she started teaching in Florida in 2004 on an alternative temporary license. So from 2004 up through the 17-18 school year, she was a certified teacher in Florida, came to Kentucky. She does not have any graduate credit or a master's degree, which we no longer require the master's or rank 2 requirement, but we still have the recency regulation in place that says if their program is more than 5 years old and they don't have any graduate credit within the past 5 years, they have to do 6 hours to renew the 1-year out-of-state recency certificate. So she, at the recommendation of her district, is requesting a waiver of the recency requirement in 4080 to allow her to go ahead and renew her certificate for the next 5 years without having to complete 6 hours of graduate credit. We have the recency regulation is still in place, and it doesn't quite make sense since we no longer have the rank 2 requirement. It does make sense if a person had a long break since they've been in the classroom teaching, but in the case where somebody's been in the classroom teaching, it just so happens they came from another state that didn't require graduate work. So
I thought you said 2018 was the last year she was teaching. Did I misunderstand?
The 17-18 school year was the last year that she was
So that's
teaching
5
in
years.
Florida.
In
But
Florida.
she's been teaching in
In
Kentucky
Florida.
since then.
She came to Kentucky this year.
So-
She did not provide any documentation.
That's a 5-year gap.
There is a gap.
And there's a difference between kids before COVID and after COVID. It's a whole new world.
So there is a gap in her experience that she provided at the time that she renewed with us, or applied with Kentucky.
The board did see a waiver of this regulation in December that the committee and the board approved. However, in that case, the individual was an out-of-state teacher who had a continuous 30
Right.
years teaching.
That's-
And so that was why the board approved it at that time. If you approve, she is going to be issued the 5-year certificate. If you deny, has she been issued a recency certificate?
She has the recency
She has the
certificate right now.
certificate now.
So she would have to complete 6 hours before she can renew for next year.
So does she have the 1 year?
Right now, she does. It
And so she
expires
just
June
needs to do
30th.
6 hours in a year?
Graduate hours, yes.
But she hasn't done it yet.
She hasn't.
She's asking not to do that.
She
For
has-
5 years?
And so when we deny, if we deny, she won't be able to teach next year because she
Unless-
couldn't get the 6 hour. Well, she could take summer.
She can take summer
She could
class.
take summer.
And she would also be eligible for an emergency
Emergency.
certificate, which is at a lower rank.
Okay.
But that,
So,
And on top of that, we're very low on teachers. She has experience. She's already hired. I'm just thinking out loud.
So we just talked about,
recency
And a
is
master's
one
is
that
not
we will
required
have to
anymore.
be, this board will have to look at very quickly because with the approval of the interstate teachers compact,
right,
that is another thing that's going to have to be determined in how we proceed.
But if she were teaching in Kentucky and had this exact same situation, she no longer is required for the master's or the rank 2. So it's almost like we're putting which it does make sense to put an extra burden on an
If she had
out-of-state
been in
applicant.
Kentucky and her last year was 17, 18, she would have had it in 6 hours to renew because she would have had 3 years of teaching experience.
So then how are we gonna give her a better offer than we give our own Kentucky residents?
correct.
And that is the determination.
I think the gap is the gap
The
in.
gap is-
Well, plus, if you're in Kentucky and I would tell you no, and you're coming from Florida and I tell you yes, I as a Kentucky citizen have a problem with that.
Mhm.
So I think she should have the same requirements that a Kentucky teacher would have to have.
One thing I do want to throw in is that the requirement is 6 hours.
Right.
6 hours. Doesn't require education.
So
So,
she can get 6 hours.
yeah.
6
Yeah,
hours.
she can get 6 hours.
Yeah, it could be any 6 hours, so.
Right.
And I understand exactly what you're saying. So, that's why we need to look at the recency.
Mhm.
Yeah, but, and you said 2018, right? So
17, 18 was the
Yes.
last year that she provided.
I'm gonna, and I hardly ever say this, but I'm gonna recommend we deny this one.
That's it.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Okay, these next 6, I should go quickly. Next 6 are all test recency waivers of 6010. Waiver, sorry, I am out of, that was waiver 8. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, one.
I, so waiver I is requested by Jennifer Bergen. She is certified to teach middle school science and social studies, currently employed with Harrison County Schools. District lost a biology teacher and she's been covering the 9th grade class with her middle school science certificate. She took a biology praxis in 2006 and passed it, but did not follow through at the time to add biology. Due to the time that has covered, that's passed in that test, I checked the test. It's the same test, it was just the paper version, where now we're electronic. And the district and her are asking if that old test that she passed can be counted now.
I would also approve.
Second.
Okay?
Waiver J.
If Jay was my teaching partner last year, do I have to recuse?
That would be best to recuse, and recuse in here and in the board.
And in the board. So
Okay.
I recuse on this one.
Okay. Waiver J is requested by Scott Gurall. Is that right?
We never do.
Okay.
I think it's Gorell.
Gurall.
Yeah.
He is a certified English teacher working to add secondary math through the highly qualified process. He took and passed the content assessment for secondary math in 2017, but he only recently inquired about the HQ process to add the certification. So the test is more than 5 years old. He's asking to have that test be accepted now.
So the same test.
Same test, yes.
I recommend we approve waiver.
Second.
Alrighty. On to waiver K.
Waiver K is requested by Mr. Nathaniel Hamer. This one is, he took the PE, or he did a PE certification program at University of Cumberland in 2016. After, while he was in the program, he took and passed all of the practice requirements for the certification. However, upon graduation, he moved to the UK, was teaching there for 6 years. He did not apply for his certification in Kentucky. He's coming back, and his scores are expired, but they were passing.
And it's still the same test.
Same test.
Alright, I recommend we
Yeah,
second. On to waiver L.
Waiver L is requested by Mallory Tweedy. She did her teacher preparation program in middle school English and social studies 2017. At the time, she'd taken all of her tests except the middle school, or she had not passed the middle school social studies test. This is one now that is subject to the -1 SEM that was approved by the board in December. Her score that she took in 2017 now meets passing requirements, but some of her other scores have expired now. So now that all of her scores are passing, she's requesting that they be accepted. You all have done these previously.
I will offer a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, now, Ms. Ford, please present waiver M.
Waiver M is requested by Miss Ashley Walters. This is another -1 SEM. When she completed her program for elementary in 2017, she'd taken all the assessments but had not passed the elementary social studies. It is now passing with the -1 SEM. She's asking that her other scores that have expired would all be accepted now.
Motion to approve.
A second. All right, waiver
And
N.
last but not least, waiver N is requested by Courtney Wright. This is also a -1 SEM. She did a dual cert program for elementary and LBD special ed in 2016. All of the tests have now been taken, but all schools now meet minimum passing requirements. However, the tests that she took to pass in 2016 and 2017 are now expired. So she's requesting that since they all now meet passing requirements, that the board would accept them.
And I'm assuming all these are still the same test.
Yes.
Alrighty, I recommend we approve waiver N. Second, thank you. Alrighty. Oh, sorry. Are there any other further questions or concerns? Hearing no further discussion, at this time, the waiver committee is adjourned.